Now, according to the Buddha, there are specific causes and conditions that ultimately give rise to each stage of happiness. Indeed, the events and circumstances in a person's life do not arise by happenstance or by some ungraspable accident of fate. These too result from certain causes and conditions. He was very clear on this matter, and thus when a person understands the conditions necessary for causing some event to take place, then, according to the Buddha, one can begin to direct his or her own destiny. Well, the first degree of happiness should be familiar to just about everyone. It is the happiness that one experiences through sense pleasures, such as being in a pleasant surrounding, enjoying good conversation with good or trusted friends. It also arises when one is taking in a stunning sight, hearing beautiful music, or perhaps the delightful songs of birds. It can also be experienced through tantalizing smells and delicious tastes, enjoyable tactile sensations, even as a general freedom from tension or stress. Of course, these forms of happiness are temporary and often quite fleeting. Yet, in the moment of their experiencing, they do deliver delight and a certain level of happiness. Now, the Buddha went even further, saying that each form of happiness comes about due to a different level or type of purity. He was quite specific, noting that sensual happiness is related to purity of conduct. He saw this type of purity as being foundational to establishing meaningful and gratifying relationships, and at all levels, with oneself, other people, perhaps animals, and ultimately with the world. It has two branches or service aspects. The first is cultivating generosity, a spiritual practice that the Buddha divided into three distinct categories. The first, or lowest level of giving, he referred to as beggarly giving. Now, in using this term, he was referring to a person who gives only the worst of what she or he has, such as items no longer wanted. Now, this form of giving requires no personal sacrifice and is just a form of cleaning out one's closet full of old clothing. But for some, even this level of giving is fraught with ambivalence. Should I give it, or will I need it later on? Well, the second category he referred to as friendly giving. And this higher level of giving is practiced by one who is able to give, let's say, give away items that he or she actually uses. Even a precious object can be given without the owner's pining over his or her attachment to it. Indeed, this type of gift is generally given with spontaneity in the very moment a need is recognized. What's more, the giver feels joy at being able to give a gift that is truly needed. Well, for the third and most altruistic form of giving, the Buddha applied the term royal giving. Now, this level of generosity is reached when one experiences delight in being able to give the best of what she or he has, even that which may be most treasured among one's possessions. The giver experiences no sense of loss at releasing the gift, nor does she or he suffer remorse at having given in this way. Thus, this form of giving is said to represent the perfection of generosity. Well, the second branch of purified actions arises from morality, or sila in Pali. Now, the Buddha defined a moral code which he felt was befitting conduct for any sincere spiritual aspirant. While he did not create a list of thou shalt not directives, his list was given in somewhat the same vein. He taught his disciples to refrain from the following types of activities: killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, speaking harshly or untruthfully, and intoxication. However, the principles he set out were never intended to be taken as a set of commandments. They were offered as guidelines for wholesome behavior and for exploring how the mind is affected by one's actions. He taught again and again that spiritual aspirants should carefully protect their precious minds. For example, how does the mind react when one is engaged in some form of conflict? How does it respond to peace and harmony with, say, family members and friends? For the Buddha, practicing morality in intentionality or in an intentional way sets the ground or foundational base for the development of concentration. In turn, concentration becomes the foundation for developing wisdom. Obviously, when the mind is in turmoil, it is difficult to concentrate. However, practicing virtuous acts brings a pleasant ease to one's mental state, and this ease of being in one's own skin can be transferred to others as a gift of wholesomeness. Indeed, there is a type of joy that arises from practicing generosity and morality, and this joy allows for the arising of the second type of happiness, which the Buddha termed the happiness of concentration. Now, most people today do not think of concentration as being particularly associated with happiness, since most folks only think of happiness as being present when one is laughing or enjoying a sporting event or perhaps some other form of entertainment. Of course, the Buddha was referring to happiness as being a natural result of one's spiritual practice. Yet, mundane as the examples I just gave may seem, they offer moments of enjoyment akin to what the Buddha had in mind here. The happiness of concentration is revealed in a focused mind. You see, when a person is caught up in an exciting sports event, or, well, even a good joke for that matter, the mind is neither scattered nor distracted. Instead, it is focused totally on the object of attention. This engaged focus is what the Buddha called purity of mind. Because when the mind is completely focused in this way, an inner state of peace and stillness arises that is much deeper and more fulfilling than the happiness that arises from sense pleasures. When one's favorite sport team wins the big game, while there may be a lot of emotional exuberance expressed outwardly, inwardly, one experiences a remarkable state of peace. While the happiness of sense gratification is certainly enjoyable, it is not long-lasting. Sooner than most expect, that joy wears thin, and one eventually grows tired of it. After all, how long can one stay at the table eating chocolate cake? And the same is true in looking at a beautiful piece of jewelry. You know, some folks, or most folks, simply cannot do that for hours on end. while the happiness that arises from concentration actually refreshes the mind, even energizes it.